Welcome to Leading the Next Generation with Tim Elmore. I am your co-host, Andrew McPeak. I speak confidently today, Tim, because we are talking about confidence.
Yes. Well, if I'm not mistaken, are you not from the millennial generation?
I am a millennial. Are you not from the boomer generation?
Yes, I am. Both of which were raised in eras that were a little more confident as children.
Yeah, I think the 90s, when I grew up, was a time of very high confidence. Yeah. We thought we could change the world because the whole world was really open to us. The options were out there. Yeah. Basically, the promise that was made to me explicitly and implicitly was do all the things adults are telling you to do, and you're just going to be awesome. You're going to change the world. You're going to get in the school you want. You're going to get the job you want.
You might even be the vice president by 26 years old.
Yeah,
maybe.
I was pretty disappointed when I got to 26 and I wasn't the vice president. No, I actually, what happened to me and a lot of millennials is we woke up to the real world, when we got there. But I think confidence is a thing that was really a part of our two generations. In fact, you had a phrase you used to say, it's not exactly confidence, but you used to say our generation was high arrogance and low self-esteem.
Yeah, very often that was, not all the time, of course. In fact, I believe in your generation.
Of course,
I'm glad that you're in the workforce now. But I would say, we can build a veneer of overconfidence and even arrogance that's only a veneer. And then the moment adversity strikes, the kid maybe just crumbles and you realize, wait, I thought you were really confident. Not so much.
Yeah.
So today, as you know, we're going to be talking about confidence in kids, the lack of confidence, and how it contrasts with
because this has really been changing, right? We've gone from the millennial mindset, and we're now spending time learning from, listening to Generation Z, and what we're finding is this topic of confidence keeps coming up, even by them. Yeah. They're the ones who bring it up and say, I could really use help with confidence.
Yeah, so I was just talking to a group of high school students, and this subject came up. They all had dreams of what they wanted to see happen. But when I talked to them about why they weren't starting in, why weren't you starting something at 17 or 18, even if it's a little step, the answer was we all lack confidence. And then, Andrew, you might remember last year, Anya on our team oversaw some focus groups in 3 different countries, 3 very different countries, Mexico, Singapore, and India.
Yeah.
And in all 3 focus groups, when this subject of leadership came up, and why aren't you leading more? Why aren't you trying new things? Even taking risks to make the world a better place. Confidence was the number one reason they didn't. The lack of
across
confidence.
all 3 of those countries.
All 3 of those countries.
I remember reading that, and we were kind of shocked, weren't we? Yeah. Because we're coming off the tail of Generation IY that we talked about, and all of a sudden we realized we don't have an overconfidence problem, we have an underconfidence problem.
That's right. So I think in many ways, while many kids today suffer from FOMO, which is
fear of missing out.
Very good.
Thank you very
passed
much.
The test. Some are now experiencing FOMO. FOMU, the fear of messing up.
Yes.
Somehow adults have instilled in them, or they have built it themselves, this absolute paralyzing fright over making a mistake, failing a test, not getting into the college, what's going to happen down the road. The stakes seem to be so high in their minds at 8 years old sometimes that they just get paralyzed and they don't want to try things.
Yeah, I think the overwhelming belief is one small mess up will ruin my entire life.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's been given probably explicitly by some adults, but I think it's just a general feeling as well among today's generation.
Yeah. So as I talk to parents, and I'll be doing another parent conference in Orlando tonight, many times when they say, when I ask them, why do you think that's happening? They say, well, I am afraid of 2 things. I'm afraid of school shootings, even though it's so rare, but it's on our minds.
on TV enough that it feels like it's ever present.
That's right. Yeah. And number 2, it's the college entrance thing. They're so afraid that their kid will do something, like you just said, that will prevent them from getting into the very school, which will now sabotage their entire career.
Yeah.
That's the narrative we have.
Well, you're starting to tap into this, but I think it is worth asking. Let's dig in a little bit. Why do you think some of this is happening? Is it just the parents? Is it the kids? Is there is it the external factors? Where is this all coming from?
2 mega issues that we probably won't have time to get into all the way today, but I think they're an answer to your question. One is, I do think that Gen Z is different than the millennials. So while millennials were And we probably still do this a little bit. We're given perhaps a ribbon just for showing up on the soccer team. They were told they were awesome for minor things that they did, like putting the fork in the dishwasher, that sort of thing. We told them they were smart, and we negotiated with their teacher on behalf of them.
Yes.
We became all that kind of, ooh, this is cool. So it builds that facade. I mentioned veneer earlier of confidence, but it's really not. And inside, it actually perpetuates unconfidence, or I don't know what the right word is, lack of confidence. So that's one thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think that this idea is something we need to dig into.
Yeah.
And I know you read a book a little while ago talking about these two different kinds of confidence. And I feel like that's where we need to spend just a little bit of time in order to understand what are we doing wittingly or unwittingly to sort of promote this lack of confidence, this missing confidence.
So I want to talk about two books real quick.
Okay.
One was a very interesting book by Boyd Varty called The Cathedral of the Wild, and it's his story of how he was raised in Africa while his parents were building a nature preserve. Who says that?
Yeah, you don't hear that story too often.
We're growing up in suburbia, you and I, and they're in a nature preserve. So he tells us some things there. But before we get to that book, one book that has absolutely captured my imagination is a book that was built off an article that was released a few years ago. Now it's a book. It's called The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt, who's written other great books, and Greg Lukianoff.
That is a provocative title.
Yes, it is. Yeah. In fact, they didn't plan on calling it that. Their publisher said, this is the title it's got to be. And of course, you can imagine that article just went viral. So here's one of the premises that came to my mind as I was reading this book. If a child, even early on in elementary school, begins to act a little bit scared, a little bit fragile, it causes the caring adults in their lives, including parents, to be even more sensitive to them. Because, Andrew needs some help here.
Yeah.
But our leaning in and even being more sensitive, while that's understandable, probably perpetuates even more fragileness. So if we treat them as fragile as children, they'll surely become fragile adults. That's what I'm really saying here. So it's well-intentioned leadership, but it's leadership that's actually perpetuated a problem in Gen Z who have grown up in a darker world than the millennials did.
It's sort of like instead of helping them overcome a weakness, you sort of lean into that weakness and think, I'll help them solve that problem rather than giving them the tools to actually solve it themselves.
That's exactly right. That's what's happening. So Boyd Varty wrote this book, Cathedral of the Wild, and he talks about being raised. And in this book, he suggests that there are really kind of a couple of different kinds of confidence. And I think we ought to talk about this right now. I think our listeners will enjoy this. He echoes what we have been saying now since 2010, but here's what he basically says. There's two kinds of confidence. One is the kind that comes from never being burned, never falling down, or seldom experiencing a negative incident as a kid. Now, those are my words.
Yeah.
But it's the false confidence, really.
Yes.
That
everything is awesome because everything has been awesome.
Yeah, that's right. So I must be great because, look, nothing bad has happened to me so far.
Yeah.
The other kind of confidence is the one that we're trying to foster here in our podcast. And that's the kind that comes from having been in situations where it all went wrong and kids learn to be resourceful and to problem solve.
So in other words, overcoming the obstacles actually created the confidence.
Yeah.
It's a more real kind of confidence.
That's right.
It makes me think of this metaphor that I heard from some scientists that wanted to test sort of this theory, but it's kind of a nature-based metaphor. And as they actually grew a tree in a glass dome, right? Yeah. And this tree grows up strong, healthy, looks like any normal tree. It's doing really well. And then what the scientists did is they actually removed the glass dome, so all of a sudden it's open to the elements.
The elements.
And the very first thing that happens is in with just a couple of days, the tree blows over from the wind.
Oh my gosh.
In other words,
Great
the tree had a picture of a confident tree, right? It's growing strong, it looks healthy, all those kinds of things. But what you actually had seen was a tree that never had to learn to withstand the elements.
That's exactly right.
And so as soon as a contrary wind comes along, it blows right over.
Yeah. That actually reminds me of another metaphor that I talk about in the Generation IY book. When I was 10 years old, I'm with my neighbor Jay, and we see a cocoon in a tree. And because I'd studied this in science class, I began to wax eloquent, explaining what was about to happen to Jay. We pull the cocoon down, set it on the blacktop of the driveway, and I said, Jay, just watch. This is going to be great. Well, nothing happens for 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. So I decided, I got to speed this up. So I reached down and very delicately open up the cocoon just a little bit, just enough to where that little creature can poke his leg out. Well, now there's hope. We wait longer. Another 10 minutes goes by. Nothing's happening. So I open it wider and wider, and you know the end of this story. I open up that cocoon so wide that it isn't a butterfly that hops out and begins to fly. It's a dark and deformed creature that never flew and died by the end of the day because I helped him too much.
Yeah.
Now, this is so counterintuitive, but the struggle to get out of the cocoon is the very thing that enables that one-time caterpillar to become this incredible butterfly.
Yes.
And again, I don't mean to be syrupy here, but I think that's what's happened. In fact, let's apply it to real life.
Yeah.
I remember when my 2 kids were toddlers and they were learning to walk. They would walk along kind of unstable, looking like a drunk at 1 year old, that sort of thing. But they would topple over. Well, kids are naturally anti-fragile. They are going to get right back up and saying, I'm going to do this again.
Yep.
We make them fragile.
Yes.
In fact, when you rush over, when you say, well, let me help you. In fact, I think when my kids were even older, let's say 2 years old, if they bumped their head or scraped their elbow or whatever, they would start looking to the adult.
Yes.
What's the adult going to do?
Yes.
And if we panicked, they panicked too.
Yep.
They burst into tears. If we go, oh, Jonathan, you're going to be okay. And even though we might have been panicked on the inside, we didn't communicate, this is catastrophic.
Yeah.
They took their cues from us. And I think the adults of our day unwittingly have given wrong cues about the fragileness of kids.
I think that's really good. So, I think one of the things that you're seeing here that probably a lot of listeners are seeing is this emergence of what we're calling false confidence.
Yeah, yes.
False confidence. And it comes from a couple of different areas. I thought maybe you want to talk about a couple of those.
Yeah, I've scribbled down a few, but you may want to add to this list because you have your own experience. But I do think I'm seeing false confidence, the kind that, like the tree under the glass, that when you remove the glass, you realize that was not real.
Yeah.
So one is a false confidence that comes from not actually trying anything, but watching videos on those things and thinking, I know what I'm doing because I watch YouTube.
Exactly. I've seen it on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube video for everything.
Yeah, that's right. Number 2, a false confidence from hearing they're awesome without doing anything even close to excellent. Now, that's our bad. I was not excellent at a lot of things growing up, but I didn't hear I was excellent.
Yeah.
I heard...
It's pretty close to that sort of growth mindset thing.
It really is.
Yeah, where you're just like telling them they're awesome.
Yeah.
They never then make the efforts to actually become awesome.
That's right.
Because they think that's sort of their state of being rather than something they're working towards and growing towards.
Yeah, or they start thinking, if I'm so awesome, why do you want me to try harder?
Exactly.
Because I lied to you. That's why. You're not really awesome,
Yeah.
And then thirdly, my third little thought here is it's a false confidence that stems from always being resourced with money, but never having had to earn it themselves. A phrase that I've used for years now, but I so believe in it, is the more we resource our kids, and we naturally want to, the less resourceful they tend to become. It doesn't mean we've committed a crime. Just know when we over-resource, even for good things, and we need to resource them for their school, for their work, but they tend to not have to figure out that resourceful muscle because I never had to use it.
Yeah, and I'd say that's one of the biggest differences between kids growing up 30 years ago and kids growing up today is the amount of resources that they have at their disposal. Some of those things are things their parents gave them. Some of them are just what they get naturally as a part of being a part of human society at this point in history. So I definitely think we have really, in some ways, an over-resourced generation where they continually not have to work for things just because the tools are there, the answers are there, the videos are there. So I see that happening all over.
So one takeaway, listeners, that I want to give you, if you search your mind and you look at your mindset toward your kids, your students, your young employees, I would say this. If you're overthinking about how to prevent bad things from happening instead of thinking through how do we prepare, we're in trouble.
Yes.
The job of the adult is not to prevent all bad things from happening. Now, we need to love them through it. We need to encourage them through it. But prevention is not a way to help kids grow up well. So
that's good.
Yeah.
All right. So I know we need to keep moving here.
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about is what's kind of happening to today's kids as a result of this. So I'd love for you to talk about that, and then maybe we'll get into some steps. What can we actually do?
Well, one you've already alluded to, but one natural thing that's a result of this bad leadership on our part is they develop a false sense of confidence only to be eaten alive when they enter the real world where their professor or their employer isn't quite so nice.
Yes.
We should have given them a little bit of a taste of adversity.
Yeah. What is adulthood going to look like?
Yeah. When the stakes are low, for Pete's sake.
Yes.
And then secondly, they begin suspecting they really don't have what it takes because they've not tested their skills, and they begin shrinking from risks. Mom says, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great. He says, I'm going to stop testing this skill because she's already given me a grade, and it's A+.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try any more tests. I might lose my chance.
Could mess this up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the story that comes to my mind, I love sports, as you know. I love baseball. When Ted Williams, who, by the way, was the last major league hitter to ever hit over 400 in a season, he batted 406 that year.
Wow.
He got to his last game of the season. He was, I think, 401 or 402, and his manager said, I'm going to sit you out on this game. Let's finish the season. You've hit plenty of times over 400. He goes, no, I want to be in the game. And the manager said, but you're going to risk this 400 bat. He said, I know it. Got 3 hits that day. He finished at 406.
That's awesome.
I love that spirit. By the way, pardon me, that sounds like the American spirit. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And see what happens, you know.
And if he had ended at 399, he would have been no
Still
worse
a good
for
year.
wear. Yeah.
See, that's what we don't think that way.
Yeah.
Still a better season than anybody else in the league.
Yeah.
So anyway.
What a great example. I love that.
So let me draw some conclusions, and then we can give some steps here.
Yeah.
There's 2 kinds of confidence, wrong and right confidence, in my mind. This is just me, but I do have a brain. And I know you question
pretty
that.
good. No,
You-
I
you
think
que-
it's a
okay,
pretty
all
good
right,
one.
Okay.
I'm not going to, throw shade on the podcast.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. You'll do it privately, won't
That's
you?
right,
Okay.
yeah.
So wrong kind of right kind. Wrong kind of confidence, it's fragile.
Yeah.
You just look at your kid and you go, this is fragile. Right kind of confidence, it's robust. Wrong kind of confidence, it fades. So it's there today because I said something, it's gone tomorrow when I
Yep.
don't say something. Right kind of confidence, it remains. And then wrong kind of confidence, it's fake. And right kind of confidence, it's real. So we need to not be fragile but robust, not fade but remain, and not fake but real. I think that's the shift we have to be thinking in our minds.
That's great. Okay, so I know you like to talk practical things.
Yeah.
Tell us, how do we do this? What are some easy steps we could take?
Okay, so I'm thinking parents, but you might be a parent, you might be a teacher, you might be a coach, you might be an employer. Think about the young people that are around you and maybe make an application to each of these steps. Number 1, I noticed this in my daughter, Bethany, just a little bit. My son, Jonathan, was a wild man when he was in elementary school. So he didn't
Lots
have
of boys are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He a surgery, stitches on his face,
Yeah.
So, but I would say if you seem to have a fragile kid or a kid that's got false confidence, help them to plan and then take calculated risks that are age appropriate.
Yes.
So let's say they're 5 years old and you go, they're starting to get a little fragile here. They're starting to be scared about normal things. Plan for a 5-year-old risk that would be appropriate. Maybe it's playing outside without you being around all the time
Yeah.
for 1 hour.
Yep.
Now, for some parents, they would that makes the hair on the back of their neck stand
Yeah.
up straight.
And you're not sending them into the street.
No.
That's
No.
what I love about the age-appropriate concept.
Yeah, exactly. So by then, 7 years old and 8 years old, it's maybe more. Maybe they're riding their bike to the other side of the neighborhood,
Yeah.
and that's a big deal. Then by 10 or 12, by 16, they've got their license maybe, or 17,
Yeah.
and you're now saying, I'm going to let you drive to the store and back alone without an adult. So there's ways you can think this through, but I think it's graduated steps that are appropriate to age, but you push them just a little bit because most of us need leaders to push us in our lives.
That's great. Love
Yep.
that.
Number 2, I said it before, but let me say it again. Don't think prevent, think prepare. As you lead your kids and everything they're doing, from playing video games to riding bikes to you name it, think about how is what they're doing preparing them for the future rather than I'm just preventing them from having any scraped knee or Band-Aid need in their life right now. And again, please hear me, listeners. I love kids. That's why I'm saying this, because I love kids.
Yeah.
We've prevented them from becoming the best version of themselves because we've been so the person that wanted to prevent.
Yeah,
So,
and I think a big piece of that is probably even just discussions.
Yeah, that's
talking
right.
about when we're playing a lot of video games. How is
Yeah.
this going to prepare us for
Yes.
the world?
That's right.
Starting some of those conversations.
those conversations are great. So all of life is a preparation for the next phase of life.
Yes.
That's how we need to be thinking.
Love it.
The third and final one I want to give you just is that risk is always an issue of, and I think there's 4 things: trust, capacity, necessity, and growth. Here's what I mean. If I've got a daughter or son and I'm wondering about, are they ready to take this risk? One issue is trust. We kept saying to our kids all the time, our relationship operates on the basis of trust. If you show me you're trustworthy with your phone or with your date or with your outing or with your sleepover, you get more.
Yeah.
If you show me you can't be trusted. So risk is always an issue of trust. Capacity. I think an 8-year-old in some homes is really ready for a big risk. Other 8-year-olds, you would say,
not so much.
They're a late bloomer, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's just Michael Jordan was a late bloomer, and he did quite well.
Yes.
So I think we just need to say capacity. What's their capacity right now?
Love it.
But mama, don't err on the side of caution when maybe the sleepover should be taken
Yes.
at 8 years old, and they're just a little
And
scared.
you think it's a little risky.
That's
it's
right.
It's sort of new, but we need to try this out.
But they can call you at 9, right before they go to bed, those kind of things. Necessity. Sometimes risks are needed because it's really necessary for them to do this. And mom continues to do the work. Or
Hold them
dad.
back, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Rushing down the forgotten whatever. So necessity, look at those. Are they going to need this skill? Yes, they are. Would I need a break right now? Yes, I do.
There's a lot of parents who need breaks out
That's
there.
right, yeah. And then lastly, growth. If your child or your student is a little bit fragile and a little bit scared, what's the step you can take that's going to make them grow? If you really love them, I repeat, if you really love them, don't you want them to grow?
Yes.
Of course you do. And so we need to be thinking about this graded process where they're doing this.
Well, these are the tools, really. It's
Yeah.
not an easy road to help build confidence in your kids, but it is an important one. One of the most important gifts you can give them is to not build that false confidence, but that strong confidence. One resource I know that you have worked on and we've released recently is Habitudes for Life-Giving Leaders, which we think of as a great resource for kids, especially those in positions of leadership. But honestly, it's a great resource for parents and leaders of the next generation to think through, how do I lead them in a way that's not stealing life from them, but giving life to them, empowering them.
No doubt about it. So I would say, before you have your kids go through these Habitudes, go through them yourself first. Get a study group of moms and dads. Get a study group of faculty, a study group for coaches or employers. This is leadership as I think it ought to be, but it is, like you said, breathing life on people and belief, which means we're going to let them take some risks.
Love it. So that's a resource, Habitudes for Life-Giving Leaders, that you can get on our website, growingleaders.com. As always, if you've got ideas for the podcast, different people you think we should talk to, or ideas we should contend with, send us an email, podcast@growingleaders.com. And then, of course, you would help us out immensely if you would also rate this podcast. That sort of gives us extra life and tells other people about what we're doing here. So thank you so much for listening. Go build confidence in the next generation, and we'll